hot button issues, controversial topics. I better tread lightly here. So many people ask us, is Portland, Oregon a safe place to live? And honestly, it might just depend on who you ask. It definitely depends on where you live. We're going to talk about it in this video. Stay tuned to learn more. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Paul Clem with the Home Team Brokers coming to you from Portland, Oregon. And if this is your first time to the channel living in Oregon and you want to get more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. We've helped so many people relocate to Oregon and to the Portland metro area, and as real estate professionals, we love to help with that process. So if that's you, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video and schedule a Zoom call with us. Either way, we would love to help with your move to the Portland area. All right, so is Portland, Oregon and the Portland metro area a safe place to live? Is it safe for you? Is it safe for your families? This is something that we get asked about a lot. I think this is something that a lot of people ask about regardless of the area that they're moving to. Portland is a little bit of a unique place for a number of reasons that we'll talk about in this video. But I'd like to add some context here on a lot of these topics in the least political way possible. I'm not here to give you my opinion on kind of the bigger picture issues going on in Portland. I'm not here to really offer the solutions and how to solve these things. There's people that have been elected to public positions and it's their job to take care of a lot of these issues. I don't envy them at all. I'm really here just to tell people who are moving to the Portland metro area or considering moving to the Portland area, what's really going on here from the perspective of somebody who has lived here my whole life. I've seen all of the changes over the years and really just want to be able to, again, add some context and add some perspective to some of the issues that I think for a lot of people are genuine concerns. In the past couple years in particular, Portland has been in the news for political demonstrations that have often led to violence or property damage. The COVID era definitely saw a spike in homelessness and crime overall, and this was the case around the country. It wasn't just isolated to Portland. I think with homelessness in particular, this has been something that has been really getting worse and worse over the past few decades, at least from my perspective, and COVID just exacerbated it in a lot of ways. So you put all this together, and it's really no surprise that so many people ask us about, Portland being a safe place. What areas should they avoid? And whether or not that a lot of the things that they hear about are true or not. And something else that we have to touch on, Portland has been, I think nationally, really at the center of the defund the police movement, at least from the perspective outside looking in. And again, I'm not here to give you my opinions on some of these bigger picture issues. I'm just a real estate professional trying to raise a family and make a living here in Portland just like anyone else. So here's a kind of a quick and hopefully not too overly simplified overview of really what's transpired over the past couple of years with the Portland Police Bureau. This is not including the surrounding suburbs, the surrounding towns in Portland, which all have their own police departments. And I think to varying degrees, maybe kind of mirrored a lot of what Portland did to some extent. But overall, in 2020, the Portland City Council voted to reduce Portland's police budget by $15 million, bringing it down to, I think, about $225 million for the years from 2020 to 2021. And at least as I understand it, over this time, there were 229 resignations as well as 80 layoffs as well. So you look at some of the issues, at least in part, a lot of it has been created by understaffing. So the budget was slightly reduced, but it does seem like the reduction in the police force is maybe the bigger issue in terms of some of the things that you hear about with police response time, for example. Again, something we get asked about a lot. And really, long story short here, for 2022, the police budget was $249 million, which was the highest ever on record. And so, you may hear stories about really long wait times for police response. A lot of people will talk about, they make a call to the police for something that they saw, something that happened, and they don't get any response at all. Some of those stories very well may be true. I mean, yeah, there are issues here, but for better or worse, regardless of what your opinion is, the police department in Portland has not been defunded. Phew, okay. This is definitely veering into far too a political topic, that I'm comfortable getting into. But again, it is something that we get asked about by just about everybody to some degree who we speak with who is moving to the Portland metro area. There's probably some gaps in what had transpired with the police department over the past couple of years, but bigger picture, that's really what's going on. Okay, so what do the numbers show here as far as crime goes? So like we've talked about, Portland has really been in the news a lot in the last couple of years with rioting, homelessness, also the decriminalization of small amounts of any drugs, any substances that were previously illegal. I think there's a lot of speculation that has led to a spike in crime. Again, you look at crime nationally, there was a little bit of a spike over the past couple of years. So whether it was that policy in Portland specifically, or it was just following a national trend, I'm not necessarily sure. But when you look at Portland is ranked based on crime statistics, the 21st safest city in the country. Now, Portland itself is the 26th largest city in the country. So if crime scales with population size, I think we're doing okay there. And again, crime was up in 29 of the 40 largest cities in the country. So over the past few decades, really since the 90s or from the 70s and 80s, 90s, there's been a downward trend in crime and a slight uptick or a pretty significant uptick in some areas, depending on where you're looking over the past couple of years. But has there been enough of an uptick to get back to historical highs that we saw in the 70s and 80s and 90s? It doesn't look like it. So when we look at violent crimes like murders and assaults and robberies, Portland is actually just below the national average when it comes to violent crimes. Now, when we look at property crimes, which is theft or destruction of property without the use of force, Portland is actually about double the national average. So yeah, that's pretty bad. And there are actually heat maps online through different websites, including the Portland Police Department's website, the City of Portland's website. So you can look at this on a more individualized level. There's a lot of resources online as far as where the majority of property crimes in particular are taking place in the city of Portland. That's really about as far as I can tell you, because we can't steer people to one place or another based on crime, based on other things. That's just not something that as real estate professionals we're allowed to do. So of course we can have conversations with people about areas that are going to fit them, fit their lifestyle best, and where they're going to feel more comfortable. But one thing I can tell you is that a lot of these things are concentrated in certain areas, and it's not something you're going to find everywhere within Portland city limits. Now in Washington County, we're talking Beaverton, Hillsborough, Tualatin, Tigard, Sherwood. Violent crime is about half of the national average, and property crime is just a tick below the national average. So overall, across the board, you're well below average or just below average when you look at crime in Washington County, which is primarily the west side of the Portland metro area and southwest side. Now, if we look at Clackamas County, so this is going to be Milwaukee, Happy Valley, Oregon City, Gladstone, West Lynn, Lake Oswego, Wilsonville, violent crime is less than half of the national average, about 40% of the national average, and a little bit lower on property crime than Washington County, just under the national average. So you're looking at areas within the Portland metro area surrounding Portland city limits, surrounding Portland and Gresham, which make up the majority of Multnomah County, where crime is really far less of a concern than, in particular, a lot of people may have been led to believe, or, based on things people have seen in the news and things like that. Now, I've lived in Portland my entire life, and the perspective and a lot of these things have seemed to kind of shift and change over the years. When I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, there were definitely parts of towns where I was told, you don't want to go there, it's not safe. But as I got older, into the 2000s, got out and explored a lot more on my own, really going around all areas of Portland, it's like, what's the big fuss here? You heard all these bad things growing up. and there's just people here living their lives like anywhere else. This really doesn't seem bad. It doesn't feel unsafe. Now, there's two things I think are at play here. I do think that in the media and through word of mouth, things are almost always going to be exaggerated a little bit. And it usually is the perspective of people who aren't actually spending time in these different areas where crime might be a little bit higher that are talking about how unsafe it is. You ask the perspective of somebody who lives in some of the neighborhoods that maybe have a little bit higher crime, and they might have a different perspective. I think, again, you can't ignore the issues. There are a lot of issues that exist, and hopefully we can find solutions for them. The other thing is that, like I mentioned, crime nationally has been going down steadily over the past couple of decades. So, like when I was growing up, again, like in the 80s and 90s, what I was being told is that there's these areas that are really unsafe and you want to stay away from them. Well, over the years, into, again, the 2000s, the 2010s, things have been getting better. So there probably was a time where there was certain areas where maybe it would feel a little bit unsafe that today aren't nearly as bad as they were in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And again, I'm not trying to downplay the effects of crime at all, in particular as it pertains to people who live in the areas that are most affected, because again, these are real issues. But I think it's important to know that you can live in Portland and live in the Portland metro area and live in neighborhoods that are as and feel as safe as anywhere else in the country. I would be hard pressed to find a place that I wouldn't want to take my kids to, for example, and they probably exist. Those areas probably do exist, but we're not talking about war zones here. Again, I've lived in Portland my entire life and spent time in every corner of Portland and of the Portland metro area over the course of my lifetime. And most of my 20s I spent living really in the city center and close to downtown Portland. It's a city and it's a lovely place, in my opinion, and it does have issues just like anywhere else. But I think the point being, and really the question is, what type of place are you going to feel safe and comfortable in for you and, potentially your family too? Like most major areas, crime is going to be typically more concentrated in more of an urban setting in the city and within city limits. Portland is no exception there. As you get out into the suburbs, as you get a little bit further away from the city, crime is going to be less prevalent. And in Portland, you're looking at being maybe 4, 5, 6 miles away from the city center and being in a completely different environment. But that doesn't mean by any means that if you live in Portland and live in city limits that you're going to feel like you're in constant danger. Now, if you've decided to move to Portland, or you're really leaning toward moving toward Portland, or you have to move here for work, deciding on where to live is really the next big box to check. And believe me, you have options. I mean, crime and safety is, for a lot of people, one of their biggest concerns, and rightly so, of course. People want to feel safe and comfortable in where they live. But I think when you're moving to the Portland metro area, you're going to have a ton of options again, and it's really going to be everything ranging from as safe as you can get as anywhere else in the country to, statistically a little bit higher than average crime. Start talking about different areas that are going to suit your needs, suit your lifestyle. Start considering the type of environment that you want to live in overall. And that's something that, of course, we help people with all day long. So deciding, okay, what neighborhood, what suburbs might be a best fit, and then from there digging into different details. I mean, of course, we can provide a lot of guidance there. There's a lot of information online, but the best thing that people can do is make a trip out here, drive through some of these areas, spend some time in some of these neighborhoods that seem to be a good fit for you, and really evaluate what it feels like, actually spending time there. That'll give you a much clearer perspective as to whether or not, these are going to be areas that are going to be, you're going to have crime and safety as a concern on a day-to-day basis. Now, if you can't make a trip out, a lot of people do move out here, and buy a place sight unseen. And that's something that we can assist with as well. We can provide video tours and a lot more context and perspective on more of a kind of a micro focus on specific areas or different neighborhoods that seem to be a good fit. So If you are thinking about moving to the Portland metro area, make sure to give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video. Schedule a Zoom call with us and we can talk about the neighborhoods, again, that you feel like are going to fit you best. We can talk about your timeline, your budget, and set up a game plan for you so you're ready to hit the ground running when the time comes. If this video was helpful, make sure to hit the like button. That helps us out a lot. And if you want to get more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. As always, we really appreciate you watching. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.